Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women in Web3 podcast that we celebrate the inspiring stories of women who are shaping the future of technology. I'm your host, Kenneth Chu, and in each episode, we dive into the world of Web 3.0 and explore the incredible work done by women in blockchain, NFT, metaverse, and much more. As someone who's passionate about diversity and inclusion in tech, I created this podcast to showcase the achievement and challenges of women who are making waves in the industry. My goal is to inspire more women to get involved and help to build a world that's more equitable and inclusive for everyone. In this episode of Women in Web3 podcast, we are delighted to introduce our guest, Christina Yip, a pioneering entrepreneur in the Web3 and SocialFi space. Christina has been at the forefront of fintech and blockchain evolution across Asia since 2015. Christina's expertise lies in accelerating growth in startup and structuring ICOs. She has successfully spearheaded marketing initiatives in several blockchain consultancy firms, contributing to the success of over 200 blockchain projects. These include reputable names like Chainlink, Elrond, EOS, VeChain, Neo, Harmony, and many, many more. Known for her acumen in establish effective distribution channels and executing high impact advertising strategy, Christina has a proven track record in driving customer acquisition, particularly in the blockchain industry. So without further ado, let us welcome Christina. Hi, Christina. Hi, welcome.
Hello. Hello. Hi,
Good evening to
everyone.
you.
Good evening.
Thank you for accepting my invitation and also making time for this podcast. Like I told you before, right? I'm looking forward to really have a chat with you to dive into the topic of the day. But before we start, right, there's a tradition that every guest
Mm.
get to ask the question of the day and post it to the next guest. So, are you ready to receive the question of the day posted by the previous guest so that we can officially start with the show?
Yes, let's get it started.
Okay. So the question of the day posted by the previous guest is, how would you style or accessorize the Web3 tech space? Okay, I repeat again. How would you style or accessorize the Web3 tech space?
Mm.
Okay, so is the question okay? It's a
Yep.
bit unique. It's a bit
Mm.
unique, right? So do you need some time to think about it, or you had already
I
an answer for
guess
this?
I guess I can start off with my definition of how the question went. So from my perspective, it seems like we are asking what can be added on top of the Web3
Yep.
space to make it more interesting, to make it more sparkling, and to attract more attention. Just like how we would like our accessories to draw attention from others. I guess the Web3 space also need that too. And I think like this is a very good question because in this dynamic, women in Web3, I think we need that as the accessory that we greatly inspire to want more people to do so is to support more women-led projects in the Web3 space. Not just having women in a space to have gender equality by the look of it, but also really supporting women-led projects because as far as we know right now, women-led projects are still coming in at a minority, whereby only 3% of the whole Web3 industry are led by women founders. So that's a space whereby, I think it's not as sparkly as we want to because there's not as many women who can shine. And if you let more women shine in this space, more of them advocating for different verticals within the Web3 space, then it would be a much more not just diversified, but it will definitely look more interesting and more inclusive as well.
Wow, well, thanks a lot for sharing that, and I think it ties in with today's topic of this episode also. So thank you very much, and now we can officially kickstart with the show. So just now you mentioned about to support more women in Web 3 and all that. I think that is something that we need to also, and we need to spotlight a lot of women.
Mm,
And that is also one of the objective of why I started Women in Web3, to really spotlight the amazing women in Web3 like you and a lot of my guests that had also appeared on my podcast and the future podcast episodes.
thank you.
So before we even start, right, could you do a short introduction of yourself, about your background? What were you doing before you got into Web3 space, and how do you get into Web3 space?
Yeah. So the story of how I landed up in the Web3 space, it's not by intention, as a lot of people would think. I actually landed in a crypto startup without even knowing. So that's the start. So when I went into a startup, which I thought, was just another technology company, I was looking at blockchains, I was looking at crypto, and from for me, I come from a non-technical background, so that to me was very, very intimidating because I don't know what was going on. But later on, because I needed to learn everything from ground up, including from the technicalities to doing the business sales stack for them, then I kind of accelerated my own personal growth in the blockchain space. And within a very short 1 year, I decided that, hey, this is a rapidly developing space that I want to continue in. And that's how I transited to a consultancy firm dealing with more variety of fintech and blockchain projects. And after that, I decided that even though, I went on to pursue my legal degree, what my passion still kind of wanted to linger with the crypto space, with the blockchain space. So I decided that, hey, why don't I do legal and compliance matters within the blockchain space? And later on, I decided that, hey, by staying in this role, I need to learn more, and I need to adapt more skills. So it's really diverse for me because my span of roles um, was very, very drastic, from marketing to legalities, but I really enjoy it, thoroughly enjoy this ecosystem. And yeah, that's how, 6 more than 6 years have passed just like that, and I'm still in this space.
Wow, wow. Because when you first told me that you are in the space since 2015, right? I was like, wow, that's very long. And also, like, how did you get into that space? And that's why you talk about you were in marketing and in legal. I remember you were telling me that you have your own legal, what you call it, uh,
Thesis paper.
qualification. Yeah,
Yeah,
your paper.
yeah.
Now, how do you get into the marketing side of things?
So I guess one aspect of marketing that I feel even right now at this point of time is not thoroughly looked into, and that is responsible marketing. So when we talk
Hmm.
about responsible marketing, especially within the crypto space, a lot of marketing is about just drawing attention, just getting as many users as possible. But then more and more compliance, more and more regulatory came into the space, whereby even marketing has been forced to adapt, right? No longer are the days that you can see crypto startups promoting advertising on Facebook, on some of the traditional social media platforms. And that's a very big sign that as the legal landscape kind of develops, that's when marketing will have to adjust as well. So for myself, I thought, this two, even though by the looks of it, they can seem to be very drastically different verticals in a business operation. But to me, for someone who has dabbled into both, I think that they have a very close relationship with each other. And that's something that is always codependent. And I've always adjusted marketing strategies for companies according to the revolving legal landscapes as well. So I think both go hand in hand here.
Oh, because this is very interesting, because I've been in marketing for the past 8 years, running my own marketing agency, and when you talk about combining with legal, I never thought of it. Is it something that is because of in Web3 or in Web2? There's also relations in that.
Yeah, so definitely in Web2, we have our traditional space whereby media lawyers will come into looking at how companies promote, advertise, or even your ambassadors, how do they speak for the brands. But definitely going to it, my latest legal thesis was on intellectual property and NFTs. So one thing that we know is that when you start to advertise, um, especially you go on big, on advertising, what are the things that you can do and what are the things that you cannot do? Especially in the Web3 space, it started off in a very gray region whereby nobody knows what to regulate. So slowly, we have started to see that, emerging technologies such as NFTs, all this have been slowly regulated, and that comes whereby the intellectual property rights behind them are also talked about. So this is whereby it gets very, very interesting because in the Web3 space we all heard about NFTs, but how is NFTs promoted? What is the distribution right? When you see something, when you're buying an NFTs, are you really owning it? Or at the end of the day, the metadata, how much of it is co-owned, how much of the royalties go back to the creators? Lots and lots to talk about, or even taking a photo. Marketplaces whereby OpenSea selling NFTs, do they have the rights to even showcase these photos of these NFTs by the creators? So I think the Web3 space allows more adventurous discussions, because when things are not set in stone, that's when people get more interested. They try to inspire to affect or effect some changes within the legal landscape. So when at this point of time, when the legalities are not finalized, that's when I think more and more lawyers want to come in to play a part to shape how the Web3 is going to be regulated, and that includes, of course, marketing.
Wow, now when you share all this right now, I see all the parts coming together. And also, like you mentioned, right, because a lot of things are not finalized. And also in Web3 we talk a lot about blockchain, which is
Mm,
decentralized, so there's no governance at the very beginning, and everyone is trying to grasp like what is going to happen, what NFT should be, what, because NFT talk a lot about ownership, right? Ownership, and
definitely.
also who has the rights and how the royalty is going to be distributed, what is the percentage, and all that stuff. I think it has to
Mm,
go into some legal parts, and to make sure that everybody has their own part. When you talk about ownership, when you talk about finances, I think that is very, very important to for legal to come in. So having said that, right, you also dabble into or even help a lot of firms, projects to really dive into their customer acquisition. So
mm.
how did that come about? Like that you can help them in customer acquisition. Is it through the marketing, or is it through the legal part, or is it something that you have learned or established over the years?
Mm. I think for marketing funnels, marketing channels, when we talk about Web 2 versus Web 3, a lot of it forms when you are seeking the right target audience. So, like, there is no one size fits all, even in Web two, right? There is not going to be one size fits all in Web three as well. So when I first started, definitely it was hard because it was handed to me as part of the consultancy work. So when I was working in a blockchain consultancy firm, you have all sorts of different kinds of projects coming in, from infrastructure to protocols to even like just at that time there is no NFTs, but there can be pure crypto project, which now it sounds a bit absurd. But then yes, you have all types of projects coming in. So definitely different types of projects have different target audience, right? Even though it seems like No, some people would debate about it and they would tell me, no, we're just looking for crypto owners. But then, who's going to use a product is that's not a thing that, can be just a cut, copy, paste model for every project. So when it comes to infrastructure, you are looking for developers, right? Your protocols, you are looking for developers. You don't find developers so much so on your normal social media channels such as Facebook. You don't find it in all these fundamental social media channels. And so projects that come in, they are pretty lost. What's happening? Like, what am I supposed to do? And that's when the concept of community starts to come in. And when you kind of do a comparison between Web 2 and Web 3 marketing, especially looking for user acquisition, you will find that your users are in different places. In Web 3, you are talking about a lot about developers. If you are definitely in the infrastructure, which most of the Web 3 players are in infrastructure, protocols, layer one, layer two, you are definitely looking at developers, communities. And where do you seek out from these developer communities? The latest channels that people are using, other than Discord, there are many more. People are even interacting on GitHub, for example, looking at each other repositories, and that's where you have to really crawl your database and craft things differently. So what I've learned from my time in the consultancy firm is that even though there seems to be one blanket solution for everything, there isn't, and we shouldn't. And that's when user acquisition still has to come down to the base of knowing what is the product, and who will be the people using your product. And that's when sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're in Web 2 or Web 3, you still have to go down fundamentally to who will be your paying customers. All this very what we deem as common sense questions, right? So I think at the end of the day, like I started to look more deeply into who are the target audience in different projects. And I realized that even though they do converge at some point, meaning maybe you can right now you can find a lot of these developer communities in Discord, for example. But what type of developer communities? Yet again, you're talking about developers who are going to develop different stuff. So you like the different communities will help you to dissect where to find these people. And I think it's very important to know your customer base as a result before even doing anything.
Wow, because coming from like from legal and then moving into marketing, because understanding in terms of your client, right, in terms
Mm,
of the target audience, it makes it important for you to even to do the legal part of it, because it's the user, right? The user has to be doing it. So, and it's also play a part in you consulting, because you need to know everything, especially in Web3. It's really focusing on the community and who are your paying customers and all that. So thanks a lot for sharing. And now we have a better understanding of your background and why you were in marketing and how you build up your skills over the years. So thanks a lot for sharing so much about your background.
no
Now I
problem.
think the audience and I myself have know more about you. So now there's a question that I make sure that I ask every guest, is this question from myself, is that why do you accept my invitation to be my guest on Women in Web3 podcast, knowing that the host is a man?
So firstly, I think it's always good to support causes that are that resonate with yourself. So something that definitely I see around, and I've been a very strong advocator. It's that I do truly believe that Web 3 is going to be the next future. But then we are not including the whole of the human community inside, right? We're excluding half of it out. So I think what you're doing is not just interesting, but it's really meaningful. You should keep doing this, okay, kind of.
Thank you.
And I really find that when we talk about inclusivity, it's not about just excluding men out of this conversation. I'm very intrigued and I'm very motivated and encouraged that a man would be the representation to speak about things whereby other men wouldn't. So I think this is a very admirable characteristic that you should probably, I don't know, you should advocate having more men to come into this space to learn about the strength of women, just like yourself. And as a result, I think that this podcast would be very meaningful, because I can talk about something that not just I like, but hopefully it will be a matter of time that more women, after listening to not just myself, but the women heroes in your podcast, and that's where they get inspired that, hey, there are actually a couple of women in this space. It's not entirely a blank state. It's not just that 3%. There are many, many more, and they would love to learn more and just get into the space. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for answering this question because this question is very important to me. Like you mentioned, right? You also encourage me to continue to do this, and I can tell you, I've done it before with mompreneurs. I've done 120
Mm.
episode, and I also aim to do women in Web3 at least 100 episode, so that there are at least 100 women in Web3 that is being represented, being spotlighted of the amazing things they are doing. And I think I kind of getting there because, as for your info, right, today is already episode 14, meaning that I already
Wow.
interviewed 14 women in Web3. In fact, there are more. So for this season one, right, I've really have all the guests till the end of episode 20,
Mm.
and I still have some on the waiting list for season two, right? Because
That's
I
a
think,
very good sign.
yeah, it's a very good sign, and I never expected to spin off because I only started with five women in
Mm-hmm.
Web3 through a physical panel discussion, and then from that five, I was connected with the rest, and I because I saw them talking about women in Web3, they started the ball rolling. I was connected with the rest, and recently, because I've done this for 14 episode, right? It had been running for at least 3 months. So there are other women in Web3 seeing their fellow women in Web3 being interviewed by
Mm.
me. They reach
Mm.
out to me and say, "Can I be on your podcast?" So I think
Mm.
it's good that other women. It's like a ripple effect, right? and
Definitely.
I was thinking that should I have a pause, because every episode I will have a pause, have a break before because I need to make sure that I have enough guests for the next season before I can kick off. But I think looking at the current state, right, I should be able to continue to that means after the episode season one is ended, right, with 20 episodes, I should be able to start the new season really really fast, because there are a lot of very amazing women in Web3. And also after Token, I got to know even more women in Web3, because people was like, oh, tagging all these amazing
Mm.
women.
Mm.
And I think it's a mission. It's a mission to really spotlight. And you mentioned that to really inspire other women who might not be in Web3 and do not know, because technically or generally we will think that, okay, in the tech space, even in Web3, is male dominated, which
Yes.
is true. But I see that because of what Web3 is advocating, like they promote diversity, inclusion, and also there's a lot of female founders in Web3.
Mm.
Um, because
More and more.
now the power, right, the Web3 is giving the power back to people, right, not to organization anymore, because of how is it is being structured. So I think in this episode, I think that's also bring us to the topic of this episode on how women influence in SocialFi project and Web3 adoption, because this is something that you want to share. And I'm also interested, like, how can women influence in SocialFi projects and Web3 adoption? Because
Mm.
it will be very interesting to hear from you. But before we go there, right, could you explain more about what is SocialFi in the first place? Because we have heard of social media, but SocialFi seems to be something new, or has it been around for some time? And what exactly it is? Maybe you can share with us.
Mm. So, I mean, when I used to share about the vertical of social five within Web3, just 2 years back, it was a very, very noble concept. So people are still trying to grab their mind, like around the fact that, social um, becoming more decentralized. How is it possible? Is it not already decentralized? So that's the first question that came up to me, asking me if there is a necessity for SocialFi to even emerge. And that's when I realized that, at the same time, that people do not know what they are losing to centralized activities around us on social media platforms. And that's when I think, that kind of spur me to want to advocate more for SocialFi projects as well. um, Essentially, I think SocialFi, it's an emerging trend whereby people, specifically users, want back control over their data ownership. So we're talking about data sovereignty, whereby users will now have the ability to store and manage their data when they are on social media platforms. So this also means that individual can determine who has access to their information and under what circumstances would they want to divulge this data. And there can be projects whereby, that encourages users to even grant permission only for specific applications to access their data. Unlike in right now on Facebook, on Instagram, um, you have this big issue whereby if one day you can be a social influencer garnering 5 million, 10 million followers on Instagram, but one day, if somehow or other, you get flagged, or for whatsoever reason, that even if you do not feel that it's justified, what will happen is that this whole account will be down. And that means that it's not just a profile that will be down. It means that it can be a career that can be ruined just by the mere fact that you don't own your data. You think you own your followers, but you don't. And then we also talk about, in social file, whereby privacy, security, and censorship resistance is something that always pops up. Right now, we all know that that more users, especially the younger generations, are gearing towards wanting privacy persevering technologies to come in. So that's when, in the token 2049 event, you've heard a lot about the ZK technology, how this can help to prove private transactions without sharing sensitive information. And then we've also kind of dabbled into, which is a very, very sensitive topic, censorship resistance. So when you own your data, does that mean that you can just distribute and post your data without any responsibility? But this will happen, when as decentralization happens on social media platform, because when data ownership is kind of in the spotlight, then we need to recognize that we have to embrace the good and the bad. And so we are talking about a very not just decentralized ecosystem, but we are talking about self-governing system that eventually we want it to be a healthy one. We don't know how it will turn out, but eventually we want it to be a healthy one, whereby any peer-to-peer transaction, any peer-to-peer um, um, command transaction in the form of, like, on social media, a comment, a like, etc. All this will be features that will self-regulate this ecosystem, and hopefully everyone will be kinder with each other online. Even though they can retain their sensitive information, they can remain anonymous, but that doesn't mean that it goes without any responsibility that you can say and do whatever that you want. So there is this check and balance, whereby in the utopia world of central projects, that's when a lot of social fi projects would want to garner towards, whereby we can come to a world whereby we can use social media safely, securely, but at the same time responsibly, and because of monetization or the business models that rewards good behavior, eventually we will be having a social media platform or virtual world that rewards creators who are able to step up to the game. And definitely the last thing we are talking about that spurs off from SocialFi will be DAOs. So we keep hearing DAOs, but what's that? I do believe that SocialFi will be the biggest spur behind DAO, because that's when communities will gather together. They will try to have self executing contracts within themselves. They will know how they want their users to participate in decision making and governance. So at the same time, there will allow collective decision making and also resource management. So that's when fundraising will come from DAOs as well. So much, I think can evolve from SocialFi, but that's just a very basic fundamental understanding that I have adapted.
Wow, just now when you say it's just a fundamental, right? But it seems like a lot, and there's a lot of component that is having in. And I think the follow up question for this would be, why is it important for data privacy? Or why is it important for normal people like me? I'm not an influencer. What would all this data be of impact to me, right? As compared to an influencer, they may have like 100,000 followers or million followers, and their content is all on the centralized social media. And one day this centralized social media may say, okay, Christina, your account has been blocked because you infringe certain community standards.
Mm,
So
mm,
how does it affect a normal people like me who's just using social media to hang out with friends, and maybe I only have like 1,000, 2,000. Even today I lost all these friends or all this connection. It does not matter to me, or if even I lose all these family photos which I have backups. And well, what does it affect the majority of the population in adapting social fi? Because I think you also know that there's not a lot of successful social fi that is out there.
mm,
And you
mm.
talk about integrating, having DAO inside, which is decentralized autonomous autonomous
Organization.
organization, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
like all this seems to be huge, and no one has really grasped like how to really build a good social fi project. And when you talk about social fi, it also breaks down to like the social media, and the fi means finance, right? So how
mm,
does the
mm,
finance come in? So maybe you can break it down, like what is it in for a normal layman consumer or user?
mm.
Why is it important for
So
them?
firstly, I think we always talk about solving pain points. So it seems like when people, let's say, I'm also, by the way, I'm not a social influencer as well, but it does still hurt me. Okay, if let's say my data gets leaked without my permission, if the digital identity that I have slowly built up, no matter how much is it, how many followers, doesn't matter. But it's a digital identity whereby information about me that I just wanted to share with my friends, and or in some cases I don't even want to. I want to remain anonymous towards sharing this piece of information, because I don't want to infringe sensitive governance into what I say. But we are talking about not just the mere fact that, hey, because I have a social influence right now, then I should care about it. But it's also about the fact that everyone, whether we like it or not, because we have a virtual presence anywhere and everywhere, that means that we have unconsciously and consciously formed a digital identity. So when we talk about digital identity or this metadata that are behind this digital identities, they are our other half, you know, and this other half, it's working in the clouds, whether they are working as a social influencer trying to get more followers, so that it forms a career for you, or merely by the fact that you are using this just for leisure purposes. these are still part of your identity. This is still part of your data, which means that whatever that you produce as a user should belong to you. But it wasn't given. Uh, I guess it wasn't given. We weren't given the luxury to think about things like this, right? Because automatically we put onto Facebook, and only when we face that, only when there is an issue, which by the way I did face that someone hacked into the account, and then kind of started to ask and solicit information from my friends, posing as my trying to regain information from friends and family members, and succumbing them, some of them, to scams, asking them for money. That's when your data is not just your data anymore. It actually affects other people. Um, and with decentralization, we hope that people can get access and know what data they are contributing to organizations, and at the same time whether they want to opt out of it, or if they feel that there is a reward model behind it, which eventually what SocialFi aims to do is to reward you for giving your data, right? Now we're giving our data for free. It doesn't hurt, but then wouldn't it be good if you are rewarded for your data eventually, right? You don't just when you post a photo, you take time to craft your photo, you craft your caption, to do the backdrop, to make sure the lighting is all right, etc., etc. So all these efforts and labor given to it, we don't ask for anything in return. But should we, um, going into the future of having more virtual identities? I think we should. So that's when more innovative economic models will come into place. And the financial aspect, which you talked about, is to introduce concepts like NFTs, whereby royalties can go back to not just social influencers but anyone. That you can introduce the concept of cryptocurrencies, whereby you incentivize your users' behavior. And at the same time, when all these financial models come into place, it also inspire people to be creators in this economy. So we've heard about the term creator economy, whereby everything that you create online now is labeled, now is a skill, now is work. So it does amount to something. It's no longer something whereby you just give it for free. So I think it does impact everyone, whether they know it or not. But the fact that there aren't a lot of social fi projects which are big in the space means that people don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they lost out as a result. And so this is the reason why, when there are more women who are willing to come into this place to explore these options of social fi, because we can see that women, there are a lot of creative expressionists among social influencers, women who take really good ownership in their work online. They should be represented, they should be rewarded. And I think the new era of social fi will really help to make sure that more women, not just women, more creators, they will be rewarded for their online label.
Wow, I think a few things, right, that just now you talk about people being hacked and that they become scammers using your digital identity to scam other people, especially to scam them for monetary gains, right?
Mm,
So, but I also believe that there are recent cases of Web3, even blockchain, there are hackers being hacked into that, right? So, isn't it still go back to square one that your data are not in your own security, especially some people's wallet? I think some famous persons MetaMask wallet or their crypto wallets was being hacked, right?
mm.
So in that case, like hackers can do anything, be it Web 2 or Web 3. So how does that still plays a part in protecting our own data? And furthermore, as a layman, right, holding our data, what can we do about it, right? So normal people may not be able to know, okay, what is the value of their own data itself. So maybe you can share more like on this part, right? Is it because it's still very new, there's still a lot of loopholes in blockchain, the infrastructure, the system, and that's why like hackers can still hack in because the security, the cyber security on Web3, on blockchain. Is it on that part that you can help to enlighten us on that?
Mm. I think one aspect that you talked about, which is the fact that it is still very new. For example, we are trying to make sense of how the ZK technology can help us in different projects. But then again, ZK is only probably going to a year old.
Mm.
It's a concept whereby at the start of the year, then it became very, very popular. So developers are still trying to find out more about these emerging technologies because before they can even implement and execute it, right? So we are at I would say the pilot
Mm.
phase whereby a lot of this very novel, very exciting technologies which are very promising, they still stay as promises. They're not realized yet,
Yeah.
but some are. But on the issue that yes, hackers can definitely do anything, no matter whether is it in the Web 2 or Web 3 world. But what differentiates between like what they do is the fact that whether you are able to trace back the originality of this immutable ledger records is another issue, right? So let's say we want to reduce fraud, but at the end of the day, when we say fraud, we also need to know where, like, it also needs to provide traceability. It needs to
Mm.
provide accountability. So these are the two key things that we need before we can even do any investigations. We need and the third thing, sorry, I believe accountability, right? We keep talking about accountability and transparency. So the three things that we do need can be achieved on blockchain, can be achieved on Web 3: traceability, transparency, accountability,
Mm.
and these are the fundamentals before you even go into investigations of like who to penalize upon, who should pay for the panel, who should pay for the outcome and the on or the undesired consequences of a hack. So without exposing too much of like individual sensitive information. So for example, let's say if taking the same social influencer, right? So let's say the social influencer has a very rare occasion of being hacked in one of their MetaMask wallet, um, but still wants to remain anonymous because this affects the reputation.
Mm.
If he or she is a Web3 ambassador, it seems like the person is not doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
Trying to advocate for blockchain and Web3. So what if we still want to pursue the case in order to know what went wrong, but at the same time you want this person to remain anonymous?
Mm.
Then what can we trace back? Then of course it gets back to this to the fact that what is recorded on the blockchain that
Mm.
allows us to even do this tracing, to even do this accountability questioning. So I think when we look into it, yes, the technologies are still in the pilot phase, but it doesn't mean that it will not mature. And I think it will mature in a very short span of time because the big banks are already trying to transform a lot of their internal operations with blockchain.
Mm.
When these big names come in, when we've heard of also all these big brands coming in to identify like frauds against their consumer products. So all these big banks are trying to also come in to not just be the inspiration behind or be behind the mass adoption, but they're also trying to come together to form a bigger ecosystem whereby they can be a shared ledger, they can be a shared data um, ecosystem whereby then with more and more participation we have the network effect, and eventually more the data can be more can be more reliable, can be more credible, and as a result you as a consumer stepping in at the very last phase is just joining the dots, it's just participating in it. But you would definitely get a very mature ecosystem at that point of time, and that would benefit a lot of consumers unknowingly when they step into this game.
Wow, I think you basically put out in a very simple term in especially right. If let's say you want to be a you want to be a scammer or you want to be a hacker, because the platform itself, the infrastructure is blockchain, right?
Mm,
So because it allows, that means let's say if I want to scam you, right, from point A to point B, right, it's on blockchain. So even I scam, I leave, right, you'll still be able to trace from B to A because of whatever I'm doing in that space in the infrastructure, right? I'll still be
mm.
traceable,
Yeah. So
and
something
if
has to happen somewhere,
and
right?
also I think that's the part where evidence, right? Is like you need evidence, like in law or you commit any crime, you need evidence. But in Web 2 you can't, right? You can just disappear
Much
because
harder. Yeah, much
yeah.
harder.
So with Web3, what I'm hearing is that because of the infrastructure, the traceability, and also transparency, and also at the same time, I think the part that I've heard for the first time, which is accountability, because now a lot of what you call keyboard warriors, they are not accountable
Mm,
for their
mm,
own creation because they can create a lot of anonymous fake account. But
exactly.
when you are holding your own data, right, and there will be a lot of verification that you are the owner of this digital identity, then you can't really you will be accountable for whatever you're doing. So if let's say I'm using Kenneth Chu as this digital identity on blockchain or even SocialFi, if I were to comment something nasty, it can be
Mm,
always traceable to me and I will be accountable for it. And like you
mm,
mentioned, right, this digital identity makes at least 50% of my own identity, right? I'm responsible for it. So would I want to risk it? Because we, as all of us know, that eventually we might be using this digital identity more in the future in Web3, in metaverse, in whatever technology will be coming. So when technology coming, I think our digital identity is very important. So I don't
mm,
think that it might, like what you mentioned, it might reduce the fraud, it might reduce scammers as of what we have today, and also even let's say any crimes have come in, right? I think your expertise in the legal part is to really um, build laws around all these things that might be happening. I think that is where I see the law coming in because there's no really a like I'll say a blockchain law or governance. Like for example, if someone scam you in blockchain, what is going to happen, right? So there's no one looking into it yet because it's a new space. There's a lot of there's a lot of I would say opportunity and also limitless in a way, right, at this point of
mm,
time. So
mm.
thanks a lot for sharing that, and I think the audience would have a better picture, like how I also have a better picture of why is it important for us to own our own data, because it starts from the very beginning, and
Yeah.
why banks are moving in that, because we saw a lot of data breaches, loss of data from banks and all that. I think that is important because they can't trace back, right? Even they were to trace back, it will take a while, but the damage has been done. The damage will be even
Mm,
huge. It's not just for the consumer, the user, but I think it's also for any organization. So thanks for
exactly.
sharing that light. So we have talked a lot about the social fi. I think a lot of our audience would have a better idea what social fi, because it's very 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 new, but definitely your vision and what you foresee, right? I think it is still a long way. But having said
Mm,
that, right, like you mentioned that there's not a lot of spotlight or even projects being run by women in blockchain and all that stuff. So what would be the common challenges that women face, or you yourself personally have faced, and how, if you have any, how have you overcome them?
mm. So I was expecting this question quite a bit. I guess a lot of women are still looking for the answer. For myself, I would say that my greatest challenge is still trying to navigate the space with some of the gender stereotypes. So, for example, women should be in their if we join a Web3 project, we should be in marketing and HR. So that's still the trend that is happening. We hire aggressively. Yes, a lot of firms, they say that we have a lot of women. We have 70% of women in certain verticals, and but that's still kind of the verticals that you are kind of hoping for women to join, which is still marketing, HR, less technical areas. So the impression is that women are not as technical, even though many women could be if they want to be, but they're not given the benefit of doubt that they can also do very well in the technical expertise, um, in the form of a deep technology, what we call the next emerging deep technology in Web3. We have so many different types of technologies within Web3, and people still feel that, hey, can a woman handle that, handle all these technicalities? Even when we talk about the law, it's the same, right? Can women comprehend smart contracts good enough for them to know how to maneuver the laws around smart contracts? Does a woman know like what a NFT does properly before we can even talk about IP laws behind it? So there are still many types of stereotypes behind um, uh, what women should be doing, even within the Web3 space, even within the SocialFi space. And I think that has got to go, because if that doesn't, then we are just back to inviting women, but just not breaking the boundaries, whereby we want them to have new skill sets. We want them to have a stage whereby they can create more, for the industry. Just because we are limiting them to certain verticals that we think that they should be good in, and they should just continue to stay to be good in. I definitely think that that's not the way to go, which means that we need to allow more expressions of women in all forms of verticals when it comes to the Web3 industry.
Yeah, thanks for sharing on that. I do see that, but on on another perspective, right? Like you mentioned that women are very much needed in the marketing, in the community building. But if we reverse a scenario, right? Imagine like the males are coming in to do marketing, to do community building, right? What would that looks like? I'm just imagining, right? How would
Mm,
that looks
mm.
like in that whole ecosystem? Because there's
I
so
think it
many.
will it
Yeah.
will be great. Like because then we can it's vice versa, right? We can't just assume that men are not good in this area. We might be surprised, giving more men opportunities to take up space in handling people, HR, and that's when we would know later on,
Mm.
after we have enough cases, we have enough statistics to show that when both women and men are in certain verticals, which gender does better, or maybe there isn't even the need to even stereotype which gender does better.
Yep.
Generally, maybe which characteristics of a person is better for this vertical of business. So I do think that I will be very encouraged if I see more male marketing colleagues coming in, expressing their interest and wanting to do more frontline, more consumers related activities with us. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think like what you mentioned, right? Because I came from advertising media, so it's a female dominated
Mm,
industry, right? As compared to, because I was in that industry, I was like the one or the second male in the whole team itself, and I feel what women are feeling in tech also, because it's a male dominated environment. So having said that, right, I think it will be interesting, knowing that we have all this, and how can we, right, what can we do to unlock more potential of women and have more women in Web3? Because one thing we have to recognize is that women does not have that same starting point, right, as male in the industry, right?
Mm,
Because like
mm,
for media, it's female dominated. So even for
mm.
male to really go in, right, it's still quite challenging as compared to women in tech. So what would you suggest that how can we unlock more potential of women? Like because women are not maybe not given as some countries now given the opportunity to go into tech,
Mm,
or maybe
mm,
because of the exposure, the role models, because they don't believe that, because they haven't seen a woman that is really good in tech, that is shining, that is on the limelight, or is even on the news, right? Like recently, I saw there's one news on Netflix. Netflix CTO is a woman,
mm,
is a female CTO. So which is very rare. Or there are, because when I run this podcast, right, I realized that there are women who are like very good in tech, right? I really have a few guests that are like really good in tech. They can speak on par with the CTO, with the tech
mm,
people, with the developer, but at the same time, they equip with the marketing knowledge, and they are very deep in it. Like some of my guests, one of them is a blockchain journalist. Right,
mm.
she's a guest on, and when she talked about all the tech, the jargon, I was like, I got totally lost. And the next person I can think of, okay, oh, my CTO, can you come in and help me, right? So I think these are the things that we need to spotlight, and that is also the important, like you mentioned, right? So how can we unlock more of the potential and have more women in Web3, although we know that the starting point is different?
So, of course, the ecosystem plays a huge part. The environment plays a huge part. If someone who is a beginner in this stage, just just have enough passion and enough interest. I think passion is a too big a word at this point of time, but enough interest in this, then there needs to be a little bit more education. If the education doesn't comes from external factors, that means you're not offered blockchain courses to develop your skill set, then you need to be the one that's more proactive to educate and inform yourself to build a strong foundation in web3 technologies to stay updated with industry trends. But also I do see that there are more and more not just within the blockchain space, but generally in the technology space, whereby there is more network. There's also more mentorship programs that's happening for females, young females who want to come into the space. So they can definitely use these opportunities to attend events, to connect with the professionals, or even seek a mentor to guide them to see if this is something that they want to continue, they want to step into, or they want to begin a career in. And of course, it also makes sense if, let's say, they are more proactive. If they are already a Web2 developer, for example, they want to go into Web3 space, they can contribute to projects, right? They can consider learning, upskilling some technical skills that's relevant to the Web3 projects that they are interested in, and take on from there. Of course, we also need to know that as the industry change and as the industry's expectations are different, that's when if there is a support group whereby women are known to be more visible, that can be a good space whereby this pairing effect will work. So I do also encourage, it's not just people who want to step into the space, but people who are already in the space. How do we build a network around this women who are in the space, and they have this extra bandwidth whereby they can guide newcomers to come into it. They can help them with what is the knowledge gap, and just using this opportunity to update and upgrade this females, and really invite them with more confidence to get into the space. So there needs to be a starting point, but if we have women leading women to come into it, it might be a more welcoming and less intimidating starting point.
Wow, thanks a lot for sharing that. I think it's also to really give them the platform, the mentorship, and a support group, right?
Mm,
Or like we mentioned, the ecosystem to really support women to get into the space as fast as possible,
exactly.
or even to to cut the learning curve short, so that they can be in the space, especially at this point of time, to really contribute or even to really thrive in this space. So, what would you say? What you can see in the role of women, right, in Web3 playing in shaping the future of businesses and society?
I think they can do a lot more. Firstly, I do like the fact that you highlighted cases whereby women are not just good in technical skills, but in also what we deem as non-technical skills. Even though I still do think, even within marketing, it's quite a technical skills. But if we were to see as like tech or non-tech in their broader perspective, then I would say that. Women have a very good advantage into coming into Web3. Firstly, because I do think that for women, they are more like generally, they do understand that, no matter how beautiful a technology is, it needs to be simplified. It needs to be communicated with the mass audience. It needs to, and that's when we still lack this, right? We still lack the mass adoption, and that's wrecking everyone's brains in the Web3 space. Everyone is thinking, how do we get mass adoption? How do get mass adoption? My answer is get more women in, because when you get more women in who understands what, like, the one big part of the group that is excluded, they are the one that can bring this group in, right? Because right now there are so many amazing technologies, but they are not simplified. They are not easily comprehensible by layman, right? Then where would you get adoption? Women are good at that, or as far as I can see, many women whom I have met are very good at this. Doing product management, simplifying terms. That's why they are good in marketing, because they know how to get to the general audience. They know what needs to be not overlaid, not complicated, such that people can understand the beautiful and things and the advantages of technologies without even understanding the complexity and the technicalities. So if we have more women in, it's not just trying to um, get more women in by the talks of it, but also to make use of this strength of women, which is what Web3 is fundamentally lacking, in my opinion. I think that we have too many guys who are trying to over complicate the technologies, trying to come up with like better and better technologies. But at the end of the day, no matter how thorough and how deep seated your technology is, it needs to be translated somewhere. And if you need mass adoption, which the Web3 definitely needs, then that means that you need people to understand what you're doing. And fundamentally, many women are good in this space, are good at communicating products. And I think we can definitely use their skill sets, no matter whether is it technical or non-technical.
Yeah, I like that part where you mentioned that get women in and then make simplify it and communicate over, because as we know, men don't really communicate. We are always solo. So, and we hide a lot of things in our heart, and we want to complicate things to make ourselves be in charge, right? So that the more complicated, if you cannot convince, you confuse. So I think that is something that I
That's a
do.
very good slogan.
Yeah.
If we cannot
So
convince you, confuse.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's why not many people can come into the space, because it has been excluded. Because when you keep building a technology, right, that is already complicated by itself, and you make it even complicated, you have
Mm,
different layers and all that stuff. But that's why when we talk about educating, right, there hasn't been a very simplified way to educate the masses, right? How to break it down so that the masses can find it relevant to them. For example, a lot of things that have been done, right, and in the tech, right, is not able to put into real world use case. And it's not relevant at all.
mm,
right? So far there are only a few things like DeFi. DeFi has been getting a lot of traction, the real world use case, but the rest of the other Web3 development is not having any real world use
Mm,
case yet,
mm,
right? When we talk about charity, whether is it traceable or not, we are not seeing
mm,
that. Even for
mm,
NFT, right? We saw the downfall of NFT in the investment market, in the collectibles. That's why a lot of people are losing faith in NFT and stuff like
mm,
that. So I
mm,
think like what you mentioned, right? I think it's really to bring the part where women can come in to connect and also have the humility of it, right?
mm,
Humility
mm,
and the humanity of it, because women does really understand people, do well in communicating, in community building, which is also the fundamental, the key to Web3. So I think if we include women in, uh, other than just the marketing part, right? But if they are really truly understand about blockchain and how they can use their expertise, right, to communicate it across and make it more real world use case, like you talk about the roles of marketing, talk about the HR. So I think a lot of
mm,
educating the human part of it, it has to be built up, and women can
mm,
contribute a lot to that. So having said that, I really would love to have you to continue this conversation. Maybe we will have another episode to touch on even more, or maybe a solo episode. But what would you say, uh, to the women? What advice would you give to them if who are interested in pursuing a career or be a startup founder in Web3?
mm. I think firstly you need to sometimes like yeah, I think this is going to be an irony saying this because we just talked about the fact that women knows how to simplify things, but then when it comes to like decisions such as whether I should get into Web3 or not, many women complicate it. They're like, wow, all these big terms that I'm saying, what is crypto, then is it trustworthy, is it a scam, blah blah blah. We are getting so much white noise about the industry even before understanding it, and that's when we get a lot of women get repelled because women fundamentally, not just women, everyone seeks security, right? When you hear
Certainty,
the
right?
the bad news, yeah, the bad news before the good news, that's when you don't see that light. But I think we need to be a bit more open-minded, especially for women who thinks that who have a certain impression of Web3 or blockchain or words such as like cryptocurrencies, for example. Give yourself some chance to go into educating yourself. See whether these concepts uh, resonate with you. And in this industry, you've got to know that there are plenty of opportunities. We are trying to include as many people as possible, women or men. So the opportunities are there, but it's fundamentally it's whether you have that interest to want to learn more about these technologies, because the space is going to evolve rapidly. One day we might know about blockchain, one day we might not, even the professionals behind it, like where
It might
it's just
evolve, right?
difficult. Yeah, it's just difficult to keep saying that you're an expert in this domain knowledge, even though you have been practicing in it for some time. So I think in the Web3 space, it is especially obvious that you need that kind of learning attitude. And secondly, of course, don't exclude yourself from knowing technicalities. Don't be intimidated by the fact that just because you think something is more technical than other, it means that you should leave it to the men to do it or to comprehend. I At the end of the day, there needs to be an entry space. If you really do want to get into this space, you're hungry enough, I think the education will have to start from yourself. And if it does, I feel that many women will be feeling very fulfilled and inspired to want to come into this space. So yeah, and if not, you can always start off hearing this podcast, right? Women in Web3. I think it's really great because it's just about general things whereby people can understand, and that's when it bridges the gap, helps people to feel a bit more confident about the space before they venture into it. So yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the promotion. I think one thing I think can sum up what you have shared, right? Is really that when you have a will, right, there's always a way, right? So women just have to find the entry point. Like for example, like yesterday, one of my friend was asking me this question. Oh, what is NFT? Because she heard it from her master into some spiritual stuff. So she asked me what is
Mm,
NFT,
mm.
and her friend, right, know that she's into NFT and went to Google and found all the white noises, all the negative
Wow.
noise, and I was telling her that thank God you asked me because I'm in that space
Yeah.
rather
Mhm.
than hearing the news where a lot of news was just like because of what Web3 is, right? What NFT is, what blockchain is, because it's decentralized. So naturally, government need control, right? When they do not understand, when they don't have control, it's hard, right? So it's more like government is still centralized. So when it's decentralized, meaning that they do not have control, and that's why all these white noises will come out. There's a
Mm,
lot of
mm,
fear inside because you do not know. When you have no control, especially for media is still a centralized organization.
mhm,
So when they do
mhm,
not know the thing and they cannot control you because they know that eventually they will not be able to hold your data, they want to keep you there so that and this the reason why there are so many noises out there, so many negativity, a lot of negative news about it. So I think it's also to really find the right people to ask. And like you
mm,
mentioned,
mm,
this is the podcast, right? This is the platform, this is the way for you to listen to people who are really doing the things. And and this is also important to really sieve out the right information, hearing from the horse's mouth rather than hearing from someone who don't even know what exactly is Web3, and they might have distort what Web3 is as a, is it is, right? So thanks a lot for sharing your advice, and also for women really take this one step. If not, connect with any of the guests, or connect with Christina. She will definitely give you a very good overview of what Web3 is, because she has been uh, 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 dipping herself in this space since 2015, right?
yeah.
So last but not least, how can they get connected with you? Because you share the advice, how can they get connected with you?
Mm. So I think I will leave my LinkedIn, and also because I'm a founder of a SocialFi project, so something that I'm very passionate about. We have been gaining a little bit of media publicity, but definitely if it's we are also going to launch our beta test pretty soon. So if you would like to know more about what I'm doing, definitely go on to chatmin.io to find out a bit more. That might be your new entry into Web3. You never know.
That's good. Thanks a lot for sharing. I think like the social fight chat mean everyone should go and check it out and really support on this part, because there's not a lot of very successful social fight because of not much involvement, not much
Mm,
understanding. So I think because social fight is still social media, social network, and people, right? So
mm,
you need more data to really contribute to the success of the project. So thanks a lot for sharing. So now it's your turn, right, for you to share your question of the day to the next guest. So what will be your question of the day?
mm. So my question of the day to the next guest would be that what do you think are among so many emerging technologies in Web3, what is the technology that you would think would really bring about mass adoption?
Okay, so maybe to repeat again. So what is the technology that you think will uh will have, is it will have mass adoption?
Will bring in
Oh,
mass adoption for
will bring
Web3.
in mass adoption in Web 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just very interested to find out, because there are so many amazing technologies in this space, but I'm pretty sure someone would be insightful enough to let us know what she thinks
Okay, so I repeat your question of the day, which is what is the technology that you think will bring in mass adoption in Web 3? Is that your question?
to Web3. Yes.
Or to mass adoption to Web3, is it? Okay,
Mm.
not in Web3, to Web3. Okay, so the question of the day posted by Christina is, what is the technology that you think that what is the technology that you think will bring in mass adoption to
Adoption to
Web3?
Web3.
Okay, so this question of the day goes out to the next guest, and for those who are tuning in and watching the replay, you guys can also share with us your answer if you are in Web3, if you have that vision. Do share with us in the chat or in the comments. So once again, thanks a lot for sharing with us, Christina. What is SocialFi? What is the women influence in mass adoption? I think I totally see where uh, I totally understand and resonate with you, and also agree with you on the mass adoption. How can women come in? Because in tech, right, it's already built by men, which is already 50% of it. But how can
Mm.
we complete that whole thing and also help to build a better world or help more people? Is to include the next 50%, right? Or 51%, right? There are more women than men. So another 51% into this equation, so that with this tag at the infancy stage, right, we have to be intentional about including
Mm.
women, so that
Mm.
all creation, all innovation will have women's input into it, so that diversity and inclusivity will be there for in the Web3 space. So thanks a lot for your question of the day and all your insights, your golden nuggets, your wisdom, and all your contribution for this episode. So once again, thank you for sharing all this, and I also thank those that are watching the replay and or listening to the podcast. So thank you very much, and I shall see everyone in the next episode. Thank you, Christina. Thank you,
Thank you. My
everyone.
pleasure.
Bye
Bye.
bye.